The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star.
Well, what is up, Cowboys Nation? Welcome to another episode of Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We're coming live to you from the SWBC podcast studio at the beautiful and yet very rainy Star at Frisco. Today, I'm joined by my two amazing co-hosts, of course, Christy Scales and Aisha Morrison. I'm Jess Navarez. Ladies, I wish we were talking Victory Monday today. Coming off of a loss to the Green Bay Packers, of course, 31-28, the Cowboys fell short in an overtime loss that almost felt equivalent to a playoff loss, really, when you just look at how down everybody is right now. But we're here to talk all things Green Bay Packers, Dallas Cowboys. We're going to break down the good, the bad, the ugly, what needed work. Of course, I want to jump right in with you, Christy, because you were there at Lambeau Field. What was the atmosphere like? You know, I know changing quarter to quarter maybe. Was it more of a roller coaster of emotions? What did you notice from the sidelines right off the bat?
It really wasn't until the middle of the fourth quarter that it felt more Lambeau-like when they played jump around and roll out the barrel. And really, there were a lot more Cowboy fans than there normally are at Lambeau.
Oh, you can hear 'em.
Yeah. I'm not saying it was a Cowboy takeover by any means, but there were a lot of the fans, I'm told by locals there in Green Bay, that after they had lost to Detroit the week before and 5 in a row for the Packers, that spurred a lot more season ticket holders to sell their tickets behind the visiting bench, and so it was a really nice showing by the Cowboys fan base. They were in the stadium early, and it got pretty loud. But in the fourth quarter, finally, the Packers had stuff to cheer for, and so it felt Lambeau-like there near the end of the game. But I just look at yesterday's loss as wasted opportunity and just more evidence of this team is not good enough to overcome self-inflicted wounds. What are the things that we talk about the most on Mondays? We talk about turnover differential and what happens after those turnovers, the points off, 14 points in the first half for the Packers off of Cowboys turnovers. And then those penalties, particularly fourth quarter and then overtime, shooting yourselves in the foot when you're really driving in overtime and maybe not even have to settle for a field goal, but maybe taking it in and instead go for it on fourth down, don't get the call, and then Aaron Rodgers, yeah. So it was just a very frustrating, disappointing end to the game, and I can tell you, ladies, it was a very quiet ride home on the flight last night on the team charter.
Would definitely imagine. So, Christy, I know a lot of the conversation going into this game was weather, and from what I could see when I was checking the weather during the game, the feels-like temperature felt like 25 degrees. I think the actual air temperature was in the 30s. Do you think weather had any kind of impact in this game, whether it be physically or mentally for these players?
Only in regards to how it affects the kicking game. Also, that field can be a bit slippery, and so by the end of pregame warm-ups, I heard some players expressing concern about it being slippery. It's a natural grass field, but Kentucky bluegrass, it looked beautiful when we first arrived, but then by the end of warm-ups, you've already got some divots out there. But what they do is they sew in some synthetic blades into it, so it's kind of a combination of natural grass and synthetic. They reinforce it with the synthetic to make it stand up better. The heating element that's underneath the field they had redone a few years ago, but it wasn't so much cold. It's just that it gets kind of dewy and slick, and so you saw throughout the game.
Yeah, there were players slipping.
Deron Bland slipped on that last one there, but it was happening for both sides. Aaron Jones, the Packers running back, slipping trying to make some cuts. In that way, it was an issue. Also, at the end of the game, where Brett Maher, it wasn't really windy; that it was really calm. and still for most of the game. But what happens is when it's cold, the ball is heavier. It doesn't travel as far. You've got a potential slick surface there. The kick's going that direction. That was north. It was to the Cowboys' right, and they just weren't traveling as much. The kickoffs weren't traveling as far.
Sure.
The Mason Crosby miss, that was less of a weather thing, and that's because he's been battling a bad back.
Sure.
But really, I would say only in the kicking game where was the weather and the slippery conditions that big of an issue.
Yeah. Did you think that? I mean, obviously, hopefully, we'll get a chance to get with him this week. But I wonder if that affected, Kevontae Turpin at all.
A couple times he lost
and
his
so
footing.
I think I think special teams were. I think they hurt a lot more than they helped this game as well. But to your point, Christy, I wanted to, when you start talking about this game, it somehow became a playoff atmosphere. It kind of sounds like it felt like the Packers rose to the occasion because no one expected for them to play to the level that they did. And the stakes of this game felt higher. And to me, going up against this team with this level of quarterback somewhat, gave us an idea of what this team was. Like we always say, like week 8, week 9, you start seeing what your team was. And what we saw were the mistakes led to them not being able to battle back. They overcame it. And then, the defense, the run defense reared its ugly head. And I guess we'll definitely get down to that. But this is a disappointing loss just because I felt like for me personally, it really refocused what this team needs to work on. And everything that we've kind of been mentioning for the last couple of weeks has kind of showed up in this game, and they just weren't able to overcome it at the end. So
Sure, and what I wanted to ask you all is I have managed to stay off of Cowboys Twitter for the last 12 hours or so because it is just not a fun place post-Cowboys loss. I mean, let's be honest. Not fun right now to be, but from what I did see, I noticed a lot of people comparing this game as a blueprint game, potentially for the Cowboys, and exposing a lot of those weaknesses. I wanted to get both of your inputs on what you think about that, and if you think this was a blueprint game, or like you said, Aisha, do you think it was simply just the Cowboys not fixing the issues that we've seen? I mean, what is your take on that? And then Christy, will go to you.
I'm going to echo what Michael Parsons said last night in his interview. And he said, until we fix it, it's not going to change.
Sure.
And when you look at the run, like specifically what teams have done attacking the run defense of the Cowboys, schematically they're doing things to put them in spots where they have to make decisions. Unfortunately, they're just not making the right decisions. But then also there's some discipline that comes into play. It's guys playing their assignment, playing their gap, doing their job. It's also tackling. Like, as a collective, they are not – it seems like a lot of individuals playing right now and not them playing as a whole and even floating to the ball at the same time, playing for your brother, holding your gap until your guy can make the play. And so it's they like we've talked about it, and we've heard even DeMarcus Lawrence talk about it on 105.3 The Fan. They've been very vocal about being accountable. Well, it's now time to see it on the field.
Oh, that's beautifully said. Christy, what is your take on that? Do you think this was more of a blueprint game, or just a series of events that led to the loss?
Well, Aaron Jones in the previous 2 games that he played against the Cowboys, he was averaging 6.1 yards a carry. So he's no joke. And then A.J. Dillon, a very physical back. There were times yesterday, and again, I'm speaking from the perspective watching from the sideline, where there were yards after contact, guys moving forward. So instead of stopping them for a 2-yard gain, it's a 4 or a 5-yard gain, or maybe stopping them for no gain or a 1-yard loss, it's a 2 or 3-yard gain. They got some dirty yards, and that's what we talk about with Zeke Elliott, right? Yep. It ain't pretty, but it's effective. And so, but I think when, just to your point of it being a blueprint, I think it's when you look ahead at the Cowboys' schedule and what's coming up, when you know that you've got Derrick Henry for Tennessee, coming up after Christmas, and then this week Dalvin Cook. Oh my gosh! I mean, there's some good. The rookie for Houston, he's no joke. He's Pierce is a candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year. So, it's going to get more challenging as the Cowboys go along. But any team, a quarterback's best friend is a run game. Okay? And so if you tell me, Christy, Dak's going to throw for 300 yards, or Zeke and Tony or Tony and Malik are going to combine for 170 rushing yards, give me the rushing yards every time.
Yeah,
okay? Because it means that you're controlling the line of scrimmage, controlling the clock. Usually when quarterbacks put up big numbers, it's because they have to, because they don't have a ground game. So, I mean, we're not spilling any secrets here. Like Aisha said, Micah, everybody was talking about it post-game last night. They know they've got to stop the run, but knowing it and doing it are two different things.
Absolutely. And taking a quick look at these stats right now, the Cowboys had 421 total yards. 262 of those were passing yards. And to your point, 159 were rushing yards. The Cowboys were averaging 5.3 yards per play. And something that I think for me personally, obviously, aside from the penalties, that was disappointing was the Cowboys honed in on this third down efficiency against the Bears. They overcame that, and that was something that really was a point of emphasis pre-bye week. You look at it now, well, their third down efficiency, they were 5 of 15 during the Green Bay Packers game. And look, I do want to give defense some credit there too, because the Packers were 6 of 13 in their third down efficiency as well. So both teams struggling on those third downs there, but I think that, again, when you see the Cowboys staying behind the sticks, not getting those chances to play, this is exactly what happens. And so, definitely a point of emphasis that I think we're going to have to re-emphasize going into the Vikings game, especially a very tough game for this Cowboys team that, unfortunately, this is the cards that we have been dealt now, but all good. Turning the page, and Aisha, to your point, I was looking at some of those press conferences before we got here, and a very frustrated Mike McCarthy post-game, especially when talking about those penalties. I know, ladies, beating a dead horse, just talking about penalties again, but really, penalties were a killer. You talk about self-inflicted wounds. You have 9 penalties for 83 yards. The Packers had 6 for 40 yards. And it's the penalties, sure, but it's the pre-snap penalties. And what I really, when you were talking about this game, Aisha, something that stood out to me was it was a game of emotion. And I think a lot of that really played with a lot of these penalties. I think these guys went in wanting to get this win so bad for their coach, and I love that. I love the emotion. It's just the timing of the penalties was absolutely killer. And, Mike McCarthy said in his post-game interview, you have good big play, penalty, take it back. And the Cowboys just could not find a way to get ahead of the sticks. So there was that as well. Just plenty more to dive into. So I'm going to go ahead and take the first break. When we come back, we are going to talk about key moments that impacted this game and how the Cowboys could have maybe adjusted in the half. We will have all that and more coming up in just a bit. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, Pepsi-loving football fans, it's time we had a lesson in trash talk. And I'm not talking about that stuff that happens on the field. What I'm talking about is trash, and it's the only thing that belongs in your garbage can. No, recycling might not be as thrilling as converting a 4th and long, but next time you're thinking about throwing that Pepsi Zero Sugar bottle away, just cap it back up and pretend you're down by 6 with the recycling bin wide open. Know the difference? Make a difference. Be a team player and recycle. Visit PepsiTrashTalk.com to learn more.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
And they snap it to Prescott, who looks right. It's not there. He escapes left. He'll run for a first down.
Just like football, when it comes to crypto, it's important to have a team you can trust. With blockchain.com, I know I'm in good hands. Since 2011, they've been trusted by millions around the world to buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrency.
Prescott's going to run this himself. Run it up the middle, and he scores.
Whether you're new to crypto or an active trader, they've got you covered. What are you waiting for? Get started at blockchain.com.
to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We are getting into key moments that impacted this game, as well as that fourth down call from Coach Mike McCarthy in overtime. We will get all into that. But first, let's talk Cowboys Christmas Extravaganza. Experience the most electrifying event of the holiday season, Cowboys Christmas Extravaganza, powered by Reliant. Every Friday and Saturday night from December 18th through December 17th, Cowboys Christmas Extravaganza ignites the star in Frisco with an unforgettable holiday performance showcasing the world-renowned Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, your favorite Dallas Cowboy football heroes, and, of course, Santa Claus too. Please visit thestardistrict.com/Christmas for more information. Definitely crazy that Christmas is almost here.
Yeah, well, just down the hall, Kelly Finglass, the director of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, I was just visiting with her before coming in here for the podcast, and they're putting the final touches. But the cheerleaders, just the regular season schedule is crazy with their rehearsals weeknights 7 to 10 p.m., but extra time because of the holiday shows. But I highly recommend it. The main thing is it's free. It's perfect for the family. It's here at the Star in Frisco. It is outdoors in the Tostitos Plaza, which you can't miss it. It's just in front of the Ford Center. But since it is outdoors, make sure you dress accordingly.
I was going to say, take a big jacket.
It's chilly. Yeah, in case it feels a little Green Bay, you know.
Oh, man. Very good transition there, Christy. Definitely love that. But, of course, I wanted to get into key moments that impacted this game because there are plenty of thoughts and moments you can get into. And, of course, not to say that any moment we talk about solidified anything for the Cowboys. There's multiple things that add up as to every football game with a win or a loss. So just want to preface by saying that. Let's start with that fourth down decision in overtime by Mike McCarthy. Of course, I wanted to get y'all's thoughts on that because I have some thoughts of my own, but we'll go around the table, come back to me. Aisha, how did you feel about that fourth down call by Mike McCarthy?
I felt like I think you had saw some success running the ball to that point. I think that maybe was an option, but more than anything, I understood going for it because to that point, unfortunately, your defense had not shown the ability to stop them running the ball. They were running the ball at will at that point. Now, the Cowboys were moving the ball to some degree, but I felt like in that moment it was a split decision. Now, what I was worried about was the fact that Cowboys ran a lot of tempo in this game. And I think tempo and speeding up the game is something that can be beneficial, but it can also hurt you.
Sure.
And then in this instance, the Cowboys, it felt like they knew that they were going to have a play. And I don't know if, the missed call was such a big deal in that moment. These guys were definitely emotional. I'm sure you could see that they're visibly upset on the sidelines from the, what alleged miscall of the PI.
Yeah.
Maybe I really thought maybe the guys needed to settle, maybe a timeout right there, maybe rally them in because I felt like they were frazzled getting to the line of scrimmage, and I think the play that happened and the way that play played out showed that.
Sure.
There.
Christy, how do you feel about that fourth down call by Coach McCarthy in overtime? I mean, why not go for the field goal there for those that might be wanting to know why that path wasn't taken?
I'm telling you, it was speaking from the being on the sideline and standing in it for 6 hours already, and it was getting chillier. The ball is heavier when it's colder. The field was slick. Again, it was not particularly windy, but the ball was not carrying that direction. And so I have no problem whatsoever with going for it.
Right.
Because you have to remember that in the NFL, if it's a missed field goal, the ball was at the 35-yard line. That's the line of scrimmage. So when the long snap comes back and the holder places the ball, it's going to be at the 43-yard line, making it a 53-yard field goal. If Brett Maher misses the kick, then Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense has the ball at their own 43, and they only need to get about 30 yards, maybe a little longer. Their kicker has a bad back. But all they needed was a field goal to win if you miss that kick. So I have no problem whatsoever going for it. But what I do have a question about is, remember, it was 3rd and 3 at the 35-yard line. So if you know that you're going to have two plays, that you're going to go for it and not kick, then there was an incomplete pass on third down, an incomplete pass on fourth down. My question would be, did they know that they were going to have 2 plays there? And if you did, why didn't you run it on third down? Now, again, that's, Monday morning quarterbacking. So I don't have an issue with going for it, but it's like, if you knew you were going to go for it, I wonder why you didn't run on third down.
Sure. And you know what I think is very interesting is sometimes we forget we can't have our cake and eat it too, because all season it felt like there were multiple times already where I saw, again, Cowboys Twitter saying, why didn't Mike McCarthy go for it on fourth down? Why isn't he being more aggressive? There's been multiple times in multiple games that phrase has been used. So I don't have a problem with the being aggressive and Mike McCarthy going for it, especially with the weather conditions. You even saw Brett Maher putting his foot in front of the heater that was out there on the sideline in Lambeau Field.
Yeah.
So,
and I just want to point out that I did talk to Brett and Brian Anger, the punter, before the game. Early in warm-ups, this would have been about 2 hours before kickoff, I asked Brian Anger, hey, how's the field out there? Pretty good. And, he's like, yeah, it's actually all right. Well, when I asked Brett about it, it was maybe about 35, 40 minutes before kickoff, maybe about 50 minutes. And I said, how's it feeling out there? He said, it's starting to get a little slick. So that's the one thing, one of the most important things in the mechanics of a kicker is that plant foot, which is for Brett Maher, who kicks with his right foot. His left foot is, can't lose the, traction with that plant foot. So again, you also saw with the kickoffs there, all of them going that direction weren't carrying well throughout the game. So if it were going the other direction, I'm still not sure that they would have tried it from 53 yards out.
Sure.
But again, I think that goes to the point of if you miss it, you're giving the Packers a short field in overtime, and they only need a field goal to win.
Sure, and I think a lot of that gets misconstrued, too, when you're just watching the game as a fan and not necessarily with the reporter goggles on, that there's a method behind why things are called the way they are. So going for it on the fourth down, didn't play out like they wanted to, but had it worked, probably would have ended the game right then and there. So very interesting to see Mike McCarthy kind of turn the page and be more aggressive. And so my question with that is, was that this is a Green Bay, my emotions are high, I'm putting it all on the line kind of moment for Mike McCarthy? Or was that just a strategic Mike McCarthy move to go for it on fourth down when the stakes were win or lose at that point?
I just think they needed to go score right there. I think he understood.
Preferably, yes.
I think he understood and saw what was happening to his defense on the other side of the ball as well, and he wanted to go score. Also, too, the opportunity was there. I didn't know that it was going to be in that way, but I definitely understood the thinking in it. And for Cowboys fans, especially us, we've been very used to previous regimes being conservative in those areas. I just think we cannot be hypocritical here in what we're asking for. I just think that there could have been maybe a better situational, play calling in that situation. But again, that's just looking back at things, and hopefully they learn from it.
Hindsight is always 20/20. So I want to flip the page a little bit too, because Christy, you mentioned this earlier. The picks that Dak Prescott threw during this game, the Green Bay Packers capitalized on both of which, scored, and that essentially kept them in the game. Dak actually talked about this during his post-game press conference, and visibly, of course, another frustrated person when talking to media post-game. Dak Prescott said, at this point, the plan is to stick together, make the team better moving forward, time to turn the page. And what I really appreciated out of Dak Prescott in this post-game press conference was how open and honest he was about, we wanted this win for Mike. This was a game that had high stakes. Obviously, a win in the division is important, but also this was a game that I feel like these guys put a lot of pressure on themselves to win for their coach, because it was, Mike McCarthy's, I don't want to call it homecoming, because obviously he's home now at the Star, but, his return and into a place that has a lot of emotional ties for him. And I can see why those players want to ride for him so much. But I really, Dak just said, there's no other way to say it, this sucks that we didn't get the win. But Dak Prescott, of course, Let's see, I had those stats pulled up. Let's look at what Dak did yesterday during the game. He had 265 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for, let's see, he was 27 of 46 attempts.
Say it again.
46 attempts.
46 attempts.
So there we go.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a whole lot.
And so again, we go back to what Christy's point was earlier of when Dak is being forced to, or any quarterback is being forced to throw the ball, that's the run game not being established, which how many times have we seen the same old dance with the same old song of when the run game is not established, you're put in this pinch of a position. And, especially just in this kind of situation and setting, definitely something to keep an eye on. But I wanted to get your thoughts on Dak's play yesterday, Christy and Aisha. Christy, we'll start with you. How do you think Dak looked in the grand scheme of things? And going forward, what is something you expect to see from him?
I have total faith in Dak moving forward, but he did not have a good day yesterday. And I'm not just talking about the 2 interceptions. That one in the red zone was a killer. I mean, they could have put a knife in Green Bay and, didn't do it. And there's arguments of, hey, CD's got to cut that. You can't let the defender get in front of you. And then Dalton Schultz on the one in the end zone. But I'm just talking about some of the other passes where he was not sharp yesterday. Even on some of the completions, the smoke out to Michael Gallup. Put it where the guy can catch it and keep running instead of reaching back and reaching down to do it. And that's one thing, like with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, oh my gosh. Christian Watson had a great game, a real coming out party.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The passes just hit him right in stride. That one to Sammy Watkins, right in between the numerals.
Oh, about that back shoulder.
The back shoulder one. And so it's not just completions. It's making it friendly. You talk about receivers being quarterback friendly. Well, quarterbacks, they can throw open their receivers, but it's also exactly the placement of the pass where they can catch it in stride and keep running. And so that's what you saw on those long touchdowns yesterday from Aaron Rodgers, just the pinpoint precision. And Dak yesterday, he wasn't on. Now, he did have some beautiful throws too, so I can point to a handful of those, but there, even early in the game, he just wasn't sharp. It didn't look like, I'm just, again, talking about from the field level, and it's something we were talking about on the Cowboys radio broadcast, Brad Sham and Babe Laufenberg and I. Even Babe, his 8 years as a quarterback in the NFL, he's saying like, man, that ball doesn't seem to be coming out of Dak's hand right today, So, I just feel I'm disappointed for Dak, and you could see and sense the frustration, and as you referred, it was coming through in the post-game press conference as well.
Yeah, it was definitely a gradual thing because I felt like even Aaron Rodgers, it took him a couple of drives to get the feel for the ball. It was coming out of his hands weird too. I don't know if that has to do anything with the weather change, but I will say that in regard to this offense, slow starts have hurt them. They've hurt them multiple times, and unfortunately, this is one of the times where getting off to a slow start, I think, is what put them in a place to where they started passing the ball more, or whatever the case may be. Now, I think the second drive, it was in the second quarter, like midway through the second quarter, they had that big drive where they scored, and CD had the dope catch, and he fought to the end zone. They started getting going from there, but there's just inconsistency, what you were saying.
Yeah.
And that's what's up.
Well, no, I want to point out when they started doing well like that, you mentioned the word earlier, tempo.
Tracking.
It's when they went tempo.
Yes.
And so you noted that earlier. I was mildly surprised that they didn't go tempo earlier, those first couple of drives, because what happened was that first quarter, they completely wasted good field position.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, their scoring drives were the long ones when they were backed up,
Yeah.
But they didn't take advantage early or late some of the good field position they have. But it's, to your point, I just wanted to reinforce what you said in the second quarter. Tempo makes a big difference.
Yeah, and it's just with this offense right now, the communication is sounds like it's a problem, or it's led to turnovers. It led to turnovers twice. Where both the players are coming out and speaking out. There was just miscommunication there. There was clearly miscommunication there. There also too on that the last fourth down play. Like you see that the offensive lineman, somebody didn't pick up somebody that would need to be picked up there, and you had a free runner to the quarterback there on the last game of the last play on down. So. Yeah. I think that this offense has to get with each other and communicate better, because, like I said, that's been it's starting to lead to turnovers. And also, I think that this offense is a tone offense. And the way that they ran, I think they ran the ball well in certain spots, but the way that they ran the ball yesterday was not authoritative. It was not, let's dominate the line of scrimmage, go downhill, and physically wear on these gentlemen. It was... It worked. It worked, but I don't know if Green Bay's defense was worn down at the end of this game or anything like that to break open the offense and for you to get a feel or a rhythm of the game. And I think that was the difference.
And a couple of things, too, to that point. When Mike McCarthy was talking about the 2 interceptions, he said it boils down to 2 things: route adjustments and timing issues with the Cowboys offense, which goes back to your point, miscommunications at its finest, and in this case, cost them a game. I wanted to break down how the scoring worked in this game. So, of course, the first quarter, 0-0 at the end of the first. The second, 14-14. It looked like for both of the teams, both the Packers and the Cowboys, of course. The third quarter, Packers didn't score anything. So this has been another topic of conversation. The Cowboys had that 14-point lead in the third quarter that they just could not hang on to because, of course, in the fourth quarter, the Packers scoring 14, Cowboys scoring nothing, which led to the demise, the 31-28 loss. And you know what's interesting, too, is we talk about the 1-2 punch of Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott every week on this podcast, almost every day. At this point, do you think that having Zeke in this game would have maybe impacted, like you said, Aisha, making more of a dominant stance with that run than it did yesterday during the game?
Well, I think it starts with your offensive line, but I will say that, I can't explain it. I can't really put my finger on it, but watching the game, there were certain instances where I was like, dang it, where's Zeke at? Yeah. And it wasn't, it wasn't a knock to, it's just the fact that when you see how hard Dylan was running at them and then Aaron Jones comes in there and he's slippery, but he has some physicality. We've seen it multiple times. This is kind of the norm in the NFL now, is that most teams have the 1-2 punch. And even though Malik Davis came in and did some good things, I think Tony Pollard has physicality to him. That the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball yesterday was not physical enough to me. And I think that one of the tone setters for that is Ezekiel Elliott. And I can't explain it. Yeah. But I feel like a little bit in some way I was like, there were multiple times yesterday I was like, maybe Zeke would have clipped him. Yeah. Zeke would have tore him up. He would have dipped his shoulder. But that's maybe just being unfair. But yeah.
And I think a lot of it too is this is a case, usually when we talk on this podcast about stats, it's, of course, stats are important, but they don't always tell the full story of what actually happened.
Say that.
So when you're looking at these stats, Tony Pollard, 22 touches on the ball. He had 115 rushing yards. He averaged 5.2 yards a carry. Malik Davis had 5 touches on the ball for 38 yards. He averaged 7.6 yards a carry. You usually look at that when Zeke is healthy and in the game. It's kind of opposite. It almost felt like Tony Pollard took the Zeke role with this game and was trying to wear down that defense as much as he possibly could. But to me, I think giving Malik Davis maybe more of those touches all goes back to the third down efficiency. Give him the chance to touch the ball if you had the opportunity to give him the ball more if you weren't not efficient on the third down conversions there. Something, too, in this post-game packet that Christy had sent to us so kindly. Always sends us these amazing things. It said the Cowboys' opening touchdown drive in the second quarter was 17 plays long. And I know y'all know which drive I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. It was beautiful, cohesive football at its finest. The last time the Cowboys had at least a 17-play drive that ended in a score was in 2020 against Arizona. That is a long time ago, really, when you look at it now, when the Cowboys ran 18 plays in a drive that ended with a touchdown. So you have the chemistry. You have all of the right ingredients when you're doing things like this, but you look at those 17 drives. What were the Cowboys doing that just magically worked? They're running the ball.
Well, they're also not shooting themselves in the foot.
There you go.
So,
Preach it.
Say that.
Hey, we say it every week, and I'm sorry to be redundant, but in the NFL, really any level of football, generally the team that wins the game is the one that makes the fewest mistakes. And by that we mean penalties as well as turnovers.
And I'm glad you're talking penalties because we have plenty to talk about on the defensive side of the ball as well. I want to get into that before we run out of time. I just checked the time, didn't realize how much we have been talking. So let's go ahead and cut to break. We're going to talk about the Cowboys' run defense and what needs work in terms of that, as well as a few other key moments of this game coming up after this break. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that sixth ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, Pepsi-loving football fans, it's time we had a lesson in trash talk. And I'm not talking about that stuff that happens on the field. What I'm talking about is trash, and it's the only thing that belongs in your garbage can. Now, recycling might not be as thrilling as converting a 4th and long, but next time you're thinking about throwing that Pepsi Zero Sugar bottle away, just cap it back up and pretend you're down by 6 with the recycling bin wide open. Know the difference? Make a difference. Be a team player and recycle. Visit PepsiTrashTalk.com to learn more.
With Smoothie King's original Angel Food and new Angel Food Slim without added sugar, you no longer have to choose between treating yourself and hitting your goals this summer. You don't have to choose between great taste and feeling great. Because at Smoothie King, every blend is made with whole fruits and no syrups, so you can satisfy your cravings without compromise. The only choice you will need to make is which one is best for you. Try our classic Angel Food or the new Angel Food Slim, blended without added sugar. Smoothie King, rule the day.
Welcome back to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We are talking all things Cowboys defense, breaking down that side of things from the Cowboys' loss to the Green Bay Packers on Sunday. But first, let's talk about holiday camps. 'Tis the season for Dallas Cowboys holiday youth camps, presented by Invisalign. Registration for one-day football and dance academy camps are now open for those little ones. Don't miss your chance to send your athlete to camp at AT&T Stadium on December 20th and 21st. Register today at dallascowboys.com/academy and use the code XMAS25 to get $25 off. Y'all know I love a good discount code.
We know.
So love to put the plug in for that discount
We know.
code. But $25, that can get you a lot. All right? Don't even start with me. $25. Do you know how many coffees that can get me this week?
The
It can be a lot.
coupon queen.
I'll love a good deal. But you know what I don't love? I don't love what we saw with the Cowboys' run defense yesterday. Ouch. I'm sorry. Adding salt to the wound, I feel like, there for everybody today. But let's get into it, because obviously the Cowboys' lack of run defense was a very big part of this game. It played a very big part in the Cowboys' loss, but so did other things from the defense that we were talking about during the break. So let's get into that. The Cowboys' defense, let me pull up some stats. And, I mean, really, these are the same things, the same kind of issues we've been talking about with the Cowboys defense for weeks now. You talked about the lack of the run defense, which has been their kryptonite, if you will. Really, when you look at this Dan Quinn defense, it's their kryptonite. So, Aisha, when you went back to watch this game, or even just when you were watching it, what is something you noticed from this run defense that was essentially lacking maybe more for this game than other games, or just something that looked about the same that ended up shooting themselves in the foot?
Tackling.
There you go.
Tackling. Just tackling and the swarm to the ball, the intensity to the ball. I just feel, I saw, is different right now. And guys are trying to make the play and not making their play. And it's just it's a constant thing right now. I understand that also, too, on this defense, you have a lot of gentlemen on this defense that are trying to prove what they are and what they're capable of. And this is not the right way to do it. Like, it's just not the right way to do it. You got to play for the guy next to you. You got to hold your gap. You got to hold your block. You got to do what you got to do to play as a collective. And I just don't see that. Like, there are instances, and there's instances in the game where they all swarm to the ball, and you can even see it on tape on the all 22. They all move with one step, and that's how you know. But then there's times you see, and a guy's late to a step, or a guy isn't going in the opposite direction, or there's a stunt, and you're supposed to wrap, and you don't wrap. You're going after the ball. Like, it's these gentlemen are going to have to look themselves in the mirror and look at each other and decide, like, do we want to be a good all-around defense, or do we want to just get to the quarterback? And I understand all of the other stuff that goes with it, but that's what we're looking for. This Cowboys defense has to play more discipline, contain, and play better for each other as a collective.
Great point there. And Christy, I wanted to ask you, as far as the Cowboys tackling, like we were just talking about, what did you notice from the sidelines with the tackling? Again, we're here to clarify anything and just kind of pick things as they are. Mm-hmm. Was weather an issue in that? Was that an issue with grip, or what? No. What do you think that boils down to?
I think there were a couple times where in the secondary, in particular, you can see it a little easier. It's more easy to see exposed in the secondary where guys will slip and lose a step, like Deron Bland did at that key time. But, I mean, I can give you some good examples. I can see in my mind's eye that Dorrance Armstrong setting a strong edge, and them, a good play there. But there were other times where they were allowing the edge. And when Aaron Jones runs 12 yards for a touchdown on the left side and has time to dive in and pose and Marshawn Lynch it in on a 12-yard run,
dude,
that was wide open there. But my concern moving forward this week, really the main injury report that I did on the sideline yesterday was about Anthony Brown. Mm-hmm. So the Cowboys starting cornerback, it was at about the 5-minute mark in the second quarter. It was one of Christian Watson's three touchdown catches. But that's when Anthony suffered a concussion and did not return to the game. And we'll find out more from Coach McCarthy later today, and we probably won't know more about Anthony's status for the game at Minnesota until late in the week. But Anthony is in concussion protocol, and so going against Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, and you're down, you're already without Jordan Lewis, and so Bland is your slot corner. The other thing is, yesterday, one of the inactives was Nashawn Wright, the backup cornerback. So the only other, once Anthony left the game, really the only available backup cornerback would have been C.J. Goodwin if there had been another injury at that position. So kind of a domino effect going down. And so Kelvin Joseph came in, right? But what happens with that is Kelvin Joseph was taken off Gunner on punt coverage. Gunner's the guys out wide because they're having to play. They're having to play since he's playing more on defense. We need to save him and not, have him expend all this energy on special teams. So,
and you saw it in special teams because Rayshawn Nixon went for 103 yards and five returns, and we talked about hidden yardage. That's 103 yards, and then you have another 83 from penalty. Like, special teams, was important in this game too.
Yeah, and I just want to say one more thing about hidden yardage, and I think we referenced it a couple weeks ago, but Coach Parcells, Bill Parcells, the Hall of Fame coach, would always say that 100 hidden yards is the equivalent of 6 points, so basically a touchdown.
Yep. Yep. No, there you go. Well, and something, too, that I want to mention before we start to wrap things up is you're talking about tackling, Aisha. A lot of tackling forward, helping get more yardage to the Packers. Oh, my goodness, absolutely driving me insane with the tackling forward. Yeah. And that was just very noticeable early on, even, I think. Early on. And I wrote it in my notes, and I circled it with a bunch of question marks because that's not something we've seen from this defense in a few weeks. It was something that was corrected. So there is that. We have so much more to talk about, but unfortunately, we are fresh out of time. 45 minutes flies by when I'm talking boys with you amazing women here. So with that being said, we will be back tomorrow to break down this game even more, get into it, of course, before we turn the page looking ahead to the Vikings this weekend. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us today. For Christy, for Aisha, for Jess, this has been Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Stay tuned for Mike McCarthy's press conference coming up real soon.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.